Hi guys, Matt. This is Bleats. I'm here with another tutorial video, this time on body shapes. How to draw different body shapes using a pretty simple three-piece method for the torso. So the way that I shorthand it is I draw a rib cage, the top part. Then I draw a center part, like a belly piece, like so. And then I draw hips, like this. Know what I'm saying? Of course you do. Actually make this a little bit brighter. So I'll show you how this works in practice. I know this looks pretty weird and maybe seems like, what are you drawing? That's not a barbell. That doesn't even look like a thing. That could ever be a thing. Well, it can be, and I'll show you how. So the rib cage, basic shape of the rib cage is like so. You kind of draw an oval, and then you cut out a little section on the bottom. The side view of this is sort of like this shape. Spine here, neck here, neck here. Shoulders connect here, shoulders connect here. Back of it is just like an oval because the cutout is on the other side, like so. The belly part, the center part, slots right into this piece, and you can look at it kind of like a gourd shape in some ways, maybe a jelly bean shape. The center line that goes down the middle maybe kind of gets cut different ways, but in general it's basically an oval that just slots right in. You can simplify the shape kind of like a jelly bean. Jelly bean kind of points backwards towards the tailbone because that really follows the spine. So we're not really drawing anatomy here. We're drawing a loose representation, a shorthand of anatomy. So the spine is kind of like this. Obviously, the way the bones look and all that stuff is just a lot of wasted detail that we don't really need. Definitely not to get poses down. Now for the hips. The hip shape is sort of, to do a turnaround of it, it's kind of a forward-facing bowl shape here. So you see like a top plane here. Like this shape a little bit. From the side, it sort of pitches forward. And from the back, sorry about the creaks in my house. My house is haunted. Yeah, so those are the three basic shapes. Now, in order to make different weights of characters, it's really just all about changing the shape of each one of these things. So, bearing this in mind, let's reduce this little diagram we have here. So let's start with a very thin character. The rib cage, as the rib cage is sort of a bony part, it's not going to change shape too much. It's going to maintain its sort of shape. Now the belly part is going to be relatively thin. Now the belly button is right about in the center point of this jelly bean. It's right where the jelly bean has a crease. So if you think of the jelly bean as sort of being like this shape, that can be helpful too. So it has like a crease, and that's the belly button line right there. And then the hips cut in like that. Rib cage cuts in like this. If that makes any sense. So for a thin character, we're going to make this jelly bean part pretty small. Hips are going to be relatively exaggerated in some ways because the meat is just shrunk in there. So we have this torso. Now, to see what this looks like with some, once you're gonna like ink over this or whatever, if you want me to complete the figure, show you how it would look, completed. You have shoulders that attach, the head that attaches here, and then your legs that attach like so to this torso. So we have this thin character, tapered waist, kind of like superhero proportions in some ways. And we might as well just go ahead and finish the whole figure just to kind of show you what it looks like in practice. Now let's do a sort of mid-weight character, kind of in the middle. Once again, rib cage, gonna be about the same size. Not gonna change that much. I can do. I can show you a male version. This is kind of more of a female version, I guess. So if you're gonna go with like a mid-weight character, this jelly bean is gonna be a little bit more straight up and down, And the jelly bean also sort of like, it kind of flares a little bit. If you think about it, like it's fat slotting into these kind of bony parts. So the hips, because the hips are kind of like this bowl shape, like this. The jelly bean, as it gains fat, it sort of puffs out a little bit, and it creates these little dimples on the side where it's kind of muffin topping out of the hips, out of the hip bones. So in practice, let's take this blue and actually let's do this in black just so that we can see it a little better, or not black, but just like a darker color, just so we can show you how the guide looks on top of everything. So we have the shoulders come in, neck, head, hips, like so. Makes sense? These are obviously a little bit more of like a feminine build, so maybe I'll start with females and then I'll go to male for ways to approach the same method. Yeah, so mid-weight character. Let's give ourselves a little bit more space here. Shrink this down a little bit. Okay, now let's draw a rather heavier character. Start with the same torso. Or the same rib cage, sorry. Same rib cage. Rib cage is not really changing much. Rib cage doesn't change very much because it's a bone. It's going to be the same for every person. Now we're going to take this the jelly bean and really blow it out a little bit. It's really muffin topping quite a bit as it sits into those hip bones. Now the hip bones are going to kind of contain it, you know, like this. But now when you gain weight, you don't gain weight just in your belly. I mean, some guys do, some people do. So if you wanted to make a character that just looked fat in their torso, you could leave the hips just the way they are. You could leave the hips kind of small. And you could even leave the legs kind of small. And I think everybody has seen people that look like this, you know, where they have this big sort of this big kind of belly, but there's not a lot of fat anywhere else. So the arms aren't even very fat. You know, the neck is not even that fat. All their weight is concentrated right in the stomach and the gut area. And actually, the belly button kind of turns the other direction. The character is really, really fat, like so. Now, most characters, most people, especially if you're going to go with a more feminine figure, they would gain weight all over their body. So they would be gaining weight around their hips as well. And mainly, the most of the weight, there is weight that comes around the hips, but most of the weight is around the thighs. So if you really expand these thighs a little bit, let's really make these thighs meaty to kind of balance the gut. And then you see there's this weird thing happening. Like normally when you think of like, I want a character with like a big butt, or I want a character with like big hips, normally you think of it like, that's weird. That's a weird shape. That doesn't look right. You know, like they have small hips. Well, everybody's hip bone is actually the same size. The hip bone doesn't change. The thighs really gain most of the weight. And then it really just connects. Like this weight is sort of like fat, just connects down. Now I'm going to kind of just knock some of this back just to show you what it actually looks like when you were to like cover it all with skin. See? Because the thing that a lot of people don't realize about big hips or big butts or whatever, the highest point, so like the thickest point, is not at the hips. So if you're going to be drawing a character with like big hips or a huge butt, you would think like, I'm going to draw like a big butt, you know? Like, hi, I got a big butt, yay! But actually, that's wrong. Actually, you could draw a big butt, sure. But the thighs are really the thing that's carrying a lot of the weight. So the thickest point is actually below the ass, right below the cheeks of the butt. So the curve doesn't go out here and then extend back down. The curve continues past the bottom of the butt and goes to the kneecap. Like that. And then you have your love handles. Sort of, you know, add more of the realism. So it's all like about supporting that shape, you know? So anyway. Yeah, so those are like how you draw like 3 different sort of like body shapes. You can keep playing with these proportions constantly. You can do all sorts of things with this. So like, let's say like I wanted to do a character that was like a masculine character that was really like big, you know, like really strong and buff, you know. So I still have this rib cage shape, you know. This jelly bean shape that comes down really becomes like the abdominals, right? Now there's extra muscles and extra meat that gets packed on around this rib cage. And same thing with pectoral muscles. The pectoral muscles really like get packed on top. So it's helpful to look at, like, you still have this shape, you know, maybe I should do this in a different color. You still have this basic rib cage shape, right? Let's go with something like really contrasty, like a teal. Then the pectoral muscles, though, that's darken that. Pectoral muscles, they kind of sit on top of the rib cage, you know, and they get bigger, you know. Obviously, same thing with boobs or whatever; they would sit on top. And same thing with like the muscles of like. This is where anatomy is going to help you a lot with muscular characters. Obviously, you know, anatomy is helpful, but simplifying it is really good. So like you have this neck part slots into trapezius muscles, then you have like your shoulder muscles, biceps, you know, forearms, like that. But the same basic principle holds true. So this sort of like jelly bean shape is still in there. It just really makes up the abs, you know. And then the hips still there, still same shape. And with a lot of muscular guys, the hips don't really get all that much attention as far as like meat or like muscle, you know, muscle mass or whatever. But there is certainly a lot in the thighs, you know. So I mean, muscular characters, it's gonna, you know, it definitely requires a little bit more. There's a lot of shorthand that goes into all the different muscle categories. But yeah, it gives you kind of like a basic idea of like how to draw that kind of thing. For some like a big buff dude or whatever. All right, let me shrink this down. Just kind of put this to the side so we can reference it later, and I'll kind of do a quick like turnaround to show you like how you can really, once you get this three-step situation happening. Maybe I'll just outline this guy really quick just to kind of show it, just kind of keep it consistent looking. Show you how the muscles look. Yeah, I mean the torso is too long. Whatever. But yeah, again, like we're not really doing anatomy, you know. We're doing like a shorthand. We're doing an expressive body. It's about stylizing things. So now you want to draw this character in motion, you know, or whatever. So like let's just like start to draw some characters in like a pose, you know. So like I start with this. I'm going to do a character kind of from the side a little bit, you know, like maybe they're twisting around. So I still have this basic rib cage, jelly bean shape in the middle. Jelly bean is twisting with the spine, and then we got the hips. The bottom part of the jelly bean, it also makes up the love handle, you know. The love handle can be larger or smaller depending on your preference or your tastes. Sometimes like people don't choose to really exaggerate that area very much. Same layer. I'm drawing too big. So yeah. And you can see that all those pieces are still there. You know, jelly bean, still there. Hips, still there. And you can see that where the hip kind of like rocks around, it makes a socket for the leg. And obviously the rib cage is still there. And you can, you know, you can add boobs to this character if you wanted to make it like a female, you know. All that stuff would go like on top. And those are all kind of secondary, you know. I mean, it's all secondary to this torso. The torso informs everything. The torso really is where the base of the gesture comes from, you know. So let's make like maybe like a big fat character, you know, a bubbly character. This big. There we go. And you can really like once you start to like master those three pieces, you can really push it. You know, you can really exaggerate a lot of things, you know. Make this character really big. That jelly bean is just really muffin topping out of those hips. So, just, you know, there are these rib cage, these big love handles. But you can see that all that stuff is still there, right? The jelly bean shape is right here. Muffin topping out. Rib cage. And the hips, which are kind of buried. Buried in there a little bit, but they're still there. But all this meat from the thighs, you know, kind of goes out around. So you can see that all that stuff is still there. And so yeah, like all the rest of the figure is just an exaggeration of that shape. And really, like the jelly bean in the middle is just the connector. So a lot of times, like if you want to draw like the hips and the torso first, you know, that can really help, you know, that can really help. So you have these two shapes and then you connect them. With this kind of jelly bean. We just did a fat character. Let's do a thin character. Be like more athletic. They're leaping to the side or something like that. Or something. So yeah, those three basic shapes, those really seal the deal in a lot of ways. You can get so much utility out of just those 3 simple shapes. And so much of like the weight of a character is driven by just pushing and pulling those shapes around. You want to draw somebody like really jacked, somebody really big. You know, same thing. Like their chest is going to be really huge, so that that rib cage and the pectorals that sit on top of it are really big. The jelly bean shape is going to be inverse. So like, see how this fat character is kind of like the jelly bean is weighted to the bottom, Well, you just flip it around so that like if a fat character is the jelly beans like this, a strong character, you just take it and flip it upside down like that. So in practice, what that looks like it's like this. Like a real big mountain of muscle. Yo, what's up? I lift. Do you lift? Do you even lift, bro? Do you even lift, bro? And the abs would follow the line of this jelly bean. Also remember that the abs, there's like 2 little ones at the top, 4 that are kind of the same size in the middle, and the ones at the bottom are long, sort of kidney shapes. And then let's get some of this hip going. I'll keep the colors going the way that we had it. What's up? I'm a big muscle guy. I'm so buff I can't even move my arms because my hands are huge. But yeah, those 3 basic shapes inform most of the character, just like that. So yeah, if you have any questions about this, or you want me to go into any kind of elaboration on it, just let me know. I hope this was useful to you, and I'll talk to you guys next time. If you want to ask questions, or you want to propose a tutorial, or you're just curious about anything, hit me up on my Patreon. I try to interact with people there as often as possible and try to respond to their questions and wants. So yeah, looking forward to talking to you guys soon. This has been Bleats. Bye.